Does anyone have any other new business? All right, our speaker tonight is Addison Snyder. He is a local citizen, happened to notice the flock cameras around and has concerns because he knows our Constitution and wondered about them. He investigated more about the camera system, brought up the subject in a Facebook group where I saw it, and his post generated a whole lot of comments. Some were very pro, some were very con. I mean, really, people are all over the map about the flock cameras, and so I thought it would be an interesting topic for us to address. So in just a moment, he'll have his slides up and be able to talk to us about that. And Captain Jason Roundtree has been kind enough to attend because he has a different point of view as a law enforcement officer, and so we would like to hear that point of view as well. So first we'll hear from Addison, and then we'll get comment from Captain Roundtree. And the clipboards, have they made it to the other side?
I already started it, sorry.
Okay, that's cool. That's fine. That is perfectly fine. Cool.
All right. So, thanks. How's this? Like this? Oh, the end. Ooh, that's so much better. It's a directional microphone. I see that now. That's cool. Those are really cool. All right. Yeah, my name is Addison Snyder. I've lived here for a couple years now. Yeah, so before I go into anything too crazy, I was just going to give a very broad overview as to what Flock is. It's a company founded about a decade ago that's been very quickly growing. They make ALRPs, standing for AI license plate readers. That is going to be thrown around a lot, but it is a lot more than a license plate reader, and I think the term license plate reader, ALPR, is quite a bit of a misnomer. It's a very versatile tool that sends back video and pictures back to a centralized point. It is not a local system that is self-contained. It is a system which goes back to central, and it can be configured centrally to do darn near anything. And so it doesn't have to simply just read license plates. It's configured for that at the moment, but it is very fluid, can change fairly instantly, and it won't exactly have a blinking sign saying, I'm looking for faces now, or something like that. So it's got some ethical concerns going on with it. There are roughly 100,000 cameras deployed in the USA as of today, and climbing very quickly. It takes, the company touts that it takes about 20 billion reads per month.
Wow.
So if you do the very basic napkin math on that, that is roughly 100 pictures per adult driver in the US per month. 100 pictures. 100 pictures tied to location, 100 pictures tied to the condition of your car, 100 pictures tied to all sorts of things. So, with that said, they are connected and owned privately. The actual cameras and the central system is a private company. It is currently being licensed out and leased to local, state, and national government levels, as well as a few big box companies like Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, those sorts. That's a broad overview of what Flock is. And I'm going to go a little bit into my story with how that came out to be. I was fairly familiar with Flock, not crazy. I just knew, I was like, oh, they're kind of a scary company to me. I've read a bit about them, but like, I'd never seen a Flock camera before in my life. One day I was driving home from a doctor's appointment from Lake City, and I thought I saw what I thought I saw, and I was like, holy cow, and I immediately pulled over to the side of the road, limped out of the car because of the foot thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, there it is, and I took a picture, and I was like, what the heck, and I drove home, and it was a Saturday or Sunday, I think. I was just like, not shaking, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe those are actually here. And it's just crazy because later I realized I had emailed the city council members, all of them, before, specifically about these Flock cameras, and I'd forgotten that I emailed them before this happened. So it's kind of funny for that to show its rear to, where are we at here? This is the email. I sent that August of the 28th, and I think sometime in October I saw the first camera, And this is one of those, a guy I admire, he said something along the lines of, some of the most productive emails and texts are written on the toilet. And he didn't mean like literally on the toilet. He meant like, if you have 3 minutes and nothing better to do, make it useful. Call your senator, call your representative, talk to your local government, do something slightly beneficial to the world. And that was one of those emails. And I promise you I wasn't literally on the toilet. I typed that out with my keyboard, and I don't have a keyboard in the bathroom. So, and it's funny because I literally forgot about this until like almost a month later, but I did contact them, and to this day I wait their reply. Hopefully they read it, maybe not, who knows. And so, anyways, I saw that first flock camera, and I immediately did research. I called my councilwoman representative, and I was like, what the heck are these? When did they come in? I've never noticed these before. I drive to Lake City once in a while. And she had no idea about them. And I called a few other people about them. They had no idea about them. Nobody on the council, to the best of my knowledge, seemed to really have an idea what the heck these were, when they appeared, that sort of thing. Somebody did refer me to the city manager. I emailed the city manager. I asked him, how long have they been there? What's the deal, pretty much? Very basic. And his reply, oopsies, has a couple things on it. But the important thing eventually were the documents he sent me. He sent me 2 documents specific to Flock, a contract with them as well as an invoice. So let's take a quick look at those. Let's see. So I think right here we have ourselves a document. 8 Flock cameras. Oh, and he did call, I tried to talk to him over the phone a little bit. He said there were 8 cameras in the city, 8 cameras in the county. Gave me rough numbers on the contract, and then eventually I got this contract, $50,000 for 8. He said the first 4 were that much, and then the other 4 were free, or they did like a buy one, get one, or, you know, something like that. But $50,000 was essentially what we were billed as a city. Yeah, honestly, I don't have a problem with paying money for a product. But the thing that kind of stuck out for me was the date. January 28th. So this was in the works for almost a year. I saw these in October. This whole thing, this plan, this deployment was in plan for almost a year. Okay. I've attended city council meetings here and there. I'm kind of new to the city. I'm trying to get active. I've been attending these meetings, and I hadn't heard a word of that. And that kind of stuck to me. I was like, what the heck? Why haven't we heard about this monumental shift in police doctrine? So I did a little bit more research. Long story short is I downloaded all of the city council meetings from YouTube. I ran a wonderful AI transcribing thing on my computer. It took damn near 48 hours to run it all. Yep, turned it all into text. Searched it. Flock was mentioned, I think, exactly once. We were talking about a radar thing set up around the schools. I actually spoke at that meeting, coincidentally enough. That was the only time, assuming the AI is right, which who knows, but that was the only time the word flock had ever come up in city council meetings in the past 5 years. So, weird. Which leads me to believe, and I would love somebody to correct me or fill me in here, leads me to believe that this was essentially a unilateral choice by Keith Davis or the overall department to buy and deploy these. Nobody in the city. Who knows? Hope to learn more about it, but who knows? Yeah. So looking more at the contract, you'll see, by executing this order form, customers, blah, 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 terms and conditions. The meat and potatoes of a 2-page contract is the actual contract on a URL. So if we go over here, by the way, I forgot to show this. These are all the cameras I picked up. There's a few missing. You know, we'll find those later, I'm sure. Here are the terms and conditions. Loads and loads of terms and conditions, lots of legal yada yada. A few interesting things, you know, people in the Philippines are currently using our live data to train the model for things like facial recognition, the difference between a child crying and a woman getting stabbed or whatever. that sort of stuff. But so some things that stand out there. But the thing that really stuck out to me and kind of irked me a little bit. These terms and conditions are subject to change. Last updated October 15th. So, what the heck did Keith Davis sign? What kind of legal blank check did he sign? And just to be clear, I'm not against Keith Davis. There's nothing personal going on there. I'm not against the department personally. I'm worried. I'm concerned. That's all. They do a lot of work, and mistakes get made, things happen, whatever. It's not like I'm out to get them or anything. I'm just concerned, and I think rightfully so. So, what has changed between the day he signed that document and October 15th? 15th. Well, let's go check. So, how would you find the old version of that? You would go to something called archive.org, which archives web pages. What do you think we'll find on archive.org? Oh, it got removed. Who removed it from archive.org? Must have been a ghost. So somebody told archive.org, you can't archive the terms and conditions our city or PD or whoever the heck signed. So this is a moving target. We don't know what we signed, and it's a blank check because they can change it tomorrow. That is kind of worrying to me. That's my fear. There's lots more to go over. But that, as you can imagine, has my heart racing a little bit. Okay, so about the time I saw these cameras and started pointing them out and putting them on Facebook, for the first time in my knowledge, please correct me if I'm wrong, for the first time in my knowledge, they were actually addressed publicly. And I double-checked this. I searched the histories of Facebook pages and things of that nature. But this was the address. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Ah, shoot. All right. Give that a good skim. Perhaps using safeguards, no facial recognition, encrypted data, yada, 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 yada. Does anybody notice anything about that? Take your time. Oh, okay. My bad. Does the format look familiar?
Was it a copy paste?
Getting closer. Here's a hint. You see that guy right there?
AI.
So, after I raised holy hell about this, after we got our wonderful calamity of public spirit going into reaction about these things, which actually, after all that, they couldn't even bother with a real response. They couldn't spend 5 minutes to write a paragraph or two with their own darn words.
I have to say, though, maybe it's a generational thing because I use those dashes.
No, it's fair. It's fair. But I'll show you.
Always mean that.
Oh, yeah. Read it. Skim it real quick. You ready? I feel like a magician here. Ready? Now you see it? Oh, wait. You still see it. I plugged in a very basic prompt and got the same dang thing for the most part.
So that's your AI.
Yeah, I just put that in. Yeah, I asked ChatGPT, hey, come up with a press briefing about these cameras. What do you see? Privacy and safeguards. No facial recognition. Data retention limits. Controlled access. So, I feel personally offended as a citizen. Does the police department think we're that stupid? And that's frustrating.
That's the sheriff's office.
I'm sorry. My apologies. But anyways, you're right. This is Suwannee. My apologies. Thank you for the clarification. But do they think we're that stupid? Okay. But so all that happened. It's efficient, but it's
Cold.
It's cold. But what does that tell you about the character? They are deploying AI cameras. They are deploying all this crazy stuff. What does that tell you about the character when we as the public have not had any form of notice about these in either city council meetings, to my best of my knowledge, to pretty much until I raised holy hell, these were hidden. Not deliberately necessarily, but they sure as heck weren't going around knocking on doors saying, hey, we are going to have an AI camera. It's going to follow you or it's going to take pictures of you on average as an adult 100 times per month.
Well, that immediately sounds authoritarian and police state.
Yeah. So, I have one thing. I should have asked this before, but I want to confirm what I think. Raise your hands if you knew about these cameras before you read about it on that social media post or beyond. Who know about
County.
for this county?
Yeah, okay.
2, 4.
I saw it, I drove past it.
Okay. So we got maybe 50% of the population, if that. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Maybe I'm wrong. Did you guys hear about it anywhere
Well,
official?
we,
Saw them. Okay. So they weren't exactly told.
we
Okay.
had, at one of our meetings, Buddy Williams was in here talking about the big drug bust, and he mentioned that flock cameras were used in the drug bust.
All right.
So
Fair enough.
That's how we knew, at least how I knew.
All right. But they did it first, and then they told you when they had their success story. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay.
And he just mentioned it as in passing. Yeah.
Oh.
It wasn't like he was announcing anything at all.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well,
I have a question.
yes, sir.
Do you have any idea who actually owns
Flock.
this system?
Flock.
Well,
This is leased. The company.
Is it China? Is it who?
It's a billionaire. It's a privately owned entity. It's not even a public company, so we don't necessarily have a
Does it
counting
have
on.
a name?
Flock Safety Inc. or something, or it used to be Peregrine or something.
I meant
Who's the
the
CEO?
individual name.
Or the,
I forget, but it's a bajillionaire.
Is
It's
it a Florida company or it's a?
no. This is a national company. Is started up by a bajillionaire. I forget. I didn't exactly look into it, other than it's not public and it's owned by a bajillionaire. Or started. I'm a VC funded thing with $300 million. This is not a mom and pop shop. This is a national thing created by a single, pretty much a single individual, or funded by a single individual, owned by a single. Yeah, I'm not gonna say beyond that, but it's
Isn't it all, it wasn't it started by Peter Thiel and then he funded it with, transferred into Palantir and
Yeah.
it's tied into the CIA and the
yeah.
FBI.
Yeah, it could. Well, I don't want to speculate too hard on that, but I'll let you guys draw your own conclusions. Do more research on it. I didn't research that too much. I just know it's not a public company, not publicly traded, and sure as heck ain't a public like government thing. So here, let's get a little bit more into the. Well, yeah, I guess I should answer more of this stuff, but
I have a question.
yeah, what's up, man?
In your terms of service research, when you were going back and scrolling through all of that, anything in there about other uses for this data as they're collecting? Are they able to resell
Yeah.
it to other private companies for marketing purposes and stuff like that? Or what kind of limitations and guardrails, if any,
So,
are there in their terms of service?
Yeah. So they aren't allowed to sell the data directly to other companies.
But they
What
can
I've seen
share-
it.
They can data share with parent companies or sister companies.
They can do that. They can also, if they go bankrupt, all bets are off because the purchaser has all the data, has all the stuff.
DNA testing company.
Exactly. There's that. They have that big clause in there saying, hey, we can use it for whatever we want to internally train, meaning we are shipping it. We are taking data and letting a bunch of Filipinos, nothing against Filipinos, but we're letting people way the heck out on the other side of the world watch video and listen to audio recordings of real women screaming. Like, what the heck? This is not our data. This is a private company that has absolutely no real regulations going on.
Back to that contract, the initial 50,000
Yeah.
for the cameras. Is there a monthly maintenance fee?
No, it's 50,000, I think, for 2 years, maybe a year.
No more tax dollars are going out?
Yeah, but it's gonna probably 2 years.
Two-year contract.
Thank you.
2-year contract.
Yeah, it's a renewable contract for the lease of the
Yes, sir.
cameras and the maintenance is included by the company.
Cell phones are one.
Yeah.
You can find out all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
May I read this? It's about clock.
Sure.
Okay. And what the gentleman asked the question, who owns it, etc. Flock safety cameras are owned by the company Flock Safety, a private American company founded in 2017 and based in Atlanta, Georgia. The company's business model involves owning and leasing the camera equipment to cities and other customers, which allows it to be responsible for the maintenance of the camera. Company ownership: Flock Safety is owned by its parent company, Flock Group Incorporated. Business model: the company owns the cameras and leases them to law enforcement and other organizations. Management: Garrett Langley is the co-founder and CEO of Flock Safety. The other founders were Matt Fury and Paige Todd.
Langley, huh?
Man, Georgia.
What do you say the CEO's name was? Langley? Like Langley Falls? Like Madoff? I got a joke about that.
Page Todd. The CEO is Garrett Langley.
Yeah, that's funny. Anyways, yeah, so there's so much more to go off of. Just trust me, there's way more to go off of. Things like security vulnerabilities. So I was watching a video, and just for context, I've been a software developer for about 10 years. For the past 7 years, I've worked for a company that Bloomberg called the world's most well-funded spy company. Don't read into that too much, please, but I don't do any of that. But the point is, I'm familiar with a lot of the really, really hairy, nasty stuff that can be done. And to say this is like introducing these cameras out in the wild like this is like using the atomic bomb for the first time. It's way more power than anybody's used to. They are undeveloped. They are extraordinarily premature. They are dangerous. These cameras, a guy did a breakdown on one. He may have gotten a physical camera in his place somehow. He found that by pushing a certain button on it in a certain sequence, it opens up a Wi-Fi thing. No password, nothing. Just boop, 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 boop. A certain sequence, it'll spit open a Wi-Fi network. You could connect to that Wi-Fi network, go into it, and pretty much have root access immediately. Meaning you could rewrite stuff on it to spy on individuals. You could put your own nasty malware in it. You could do all sorts of nefarious things. What else he found? He found that he found tons of other vulnerabilities in it. Another one was on the side of these cameras, there's a bunch of little rubber things. You pop off a rubber thing. There's a USB thing. Plug something in. You got a keyboard. More stuff. He found videos. They claim that they don't retain data. They don't retain data. He found data. He found video dating back to the factory. He had footage of the flock camera just laying outside looking at factory workers going across. So like how they don't like get rid of all data. He found lots of proofs of concept for all kinds of crazy vulnerabilities in this. He found that these essentially are glorified Android phones with operating systems out of date. How out of date? Well, 2017. So they probably have a whole host of software vulnerabilities and hardware vulnerabilities to them. And again, just speaking with my experience, that's messed up. When I say premature, that's messed up. These did not get audited because they don't need to be audited, because they're a third party, because they're a company. They aren't anything that they're being leased. So as far as the government cares, it isn't something they need to audit or check for security. And there are 100,000 of these out there. 100,000 cameras floating around out here taking 100 pictures of your car per day on average, statistically. And people seem okay with that. They seem okay with signing contracts that change. They seem okay with all the other scary stuff I haven't talked about yet, as far as the principles go, as far as needing a Fourth Amendment right, as far as all that stuff. I haven't even gotten into that, and these things terrify me. So, yeah, it's messed up. So, I'm going to go over to a couple of these tabs because there's some other stuff to go over. Terms and conditions, yeah. Here's the map. We got a bunch around here. I found a couple of these, but some of these were here. Again, you can zoom out. You can go to your hometown, find a bunch there. This is deflock.me. It's a website created by similarly concerned citizens. Here's another one created. Flock has a transparency portal to reassure citizens, to make sure they aren't doing anything nefarious. I can't find live oaks. There are roughly, where are we at? 769 transparency portals found. There are many more possibly, but most police departments have them off by default for some reason. Who knows? Maybe it's because they're sketchy. Yeah, this guy takes all of those portals and generates all these statistics to show all the crazy stuff that's going on there. Top search reasons for, keep in mind, actually I want to show you this first. So, note, some of them have, like they disclose the number of cameras, sometimes they disclose the number of vehicles captured, sometimes. This is very partial data. A lot of them disable certain things like search audits for some reason. And it's pretty nifty. You can actually find out who's sharing with who. A lot of police departments have lists of who they're sharing information with and who's sharing back at them. Let's do a little Control F here, Suwannee County, if I can find it. Oh no, my keyboard. Suwannee County,
No, that's Georgia.
Suwannee County, Florida.
Oh, there, yeah.
There we go. So these transparency portals exist. Unfortunately, I don't think we have one. If we do, I would love for the police department to give us the link to that. Here's something towards their essentially training. This is an actual training screenshot they have for instructions for the Filipino people and all the others floating around. But yeah, you can actually see all the statistics on this stuff. You can see the top search reasons. One of the cool things is for a while, one of the search reasons that was up there was donut. Another was ASDF on your keyboard, the first 4 keys. They had a bunch of funny stuff up there where, you know, police officers were just jamming random stuff into a keyboard for the search reasons. I'm sure there's no abuse or concern there, but that exists. You can look at this for the ones that enable it. Keep in mind, a lot of police departments have that disabled. So lots of concerning stuff. With that, I've got a lot more to talk about. I'm sure I can start finding more stuff to talk about with these, but I would love to answer some questions. I'm not going to say I know everything about tech, but I'm going to very humbly say that I'm a decent authority on that maybe. So any questions?
I don't think it's so much a question, but I think I was born and raised up until 5 years ago, I lived in Orlando. And if anybody's been down there lately, it's quite different from the 50s when I was born. And what bothers me about when I saw this for the first time, I think I read it on the River
Riverbend News.
It seems like something like this versus, say, when we have a county commission meeting and they're discussing between themselves about whether we should buy a new dump truck or whatnot, which is, from my perspective, part of why we have people in the county dealing with contracts and so forth, because that's really it's something we know things need, and we don't want to have a vote every month on all these sort of things, and it's really getting into the weeds. But it bothered me because in a city like Orlando, where the basic person has zero to say about what they do at the city level or the county level, it's bothersome to me that the county like Suwannee, and I realize we don't have a overabundance of patrol people, whether it be sheriff or city police. I can't believe that it wasn't at least discussed at a county commission meeting to allow people from the county to come, or city, either one, since they both have the cameras, and I don't know who's paying what, whether it's the city and the county. I know the city, the last city commission meeting I came to, one of the comments that was made by 2 of the commissioners was that, well, at the rate we're going, we'll never have enough money to pay all the bills we have. And yet, we're going to spend $50 grand on this, which is near about enough to hire another patrol person.
Yeah.
Well, you don't think they did that because they might get some pushback?
Well, I think that's the whole point. And I think that if you're elected to office, you know, that's part of, you're not being elected to become the dictator for 4 years. You're elected to listen to the people that voted for you and the ones that didn't vote for you. And it just bothers me. I don't, that's my big issue is the lack of transparency, that even in an area this small, where people know people, they're their neighbors, they're their friends, they're not, you know, behind a fenced and gated community with guards, where they don't have to deal with the real people out here.
So
The whole idea of being, I don't consider myself to be a bird or a sheep. I feel like it's almost offensive being called a flock camera.
Yeah, no, that's the point.
Does that-
Kind of like Palantir is the mystical thing out of Lord of the Rings, which is an all-seeing
When I
eye.
first heard that up there, my immediate response was, no, I'm not a flock. I'm an individual person with individual ideas and thoughts. And, I've never been a person to try to get away and not pay my property taxes or whatever. But I just feel that the way that this was done was done very poorly in an area of the state that's pretty conservative compared to like Orlando. And where I really also come from a hospital setting. The last hospital I worked at, one of our issues was they had very few security people in the hospital, but we had a lot of people coming and going. Our hospital had 300 cameras in it, both inside and out. About the only place the cameras didn't exist was in patient rooms. But I'm sure if they could have, they would put them there too, to keep the nurse from having to walk down to the room. But, we still had shootings in the ER. We still had truck tailgates stolen during the night. We had entire cars stolen out of the parking lot that were employees' cars. Because they relied on cameras to do the work that really needs to be done by the person that's thinking, a security person on the property.
One of the
I worry sometimes that I can see where this could be useful in a positive way. But one of the things that you mentioned was a few years back, way back, because at my age I was playing with computers in my 40s. I found information about a network that I joined when I was in my mid-30s. That data was still sitting out there.
Oh, my.
And I'm thinking, at what point do they run out of space and put this stuff? You know very well that this company, because they might say, oh, we only keep the data for 30 days. I really seriously doubt that. You'd have to really impress me with something believable, because with computers, it's so easy to delete and then rebuild and recreate. I don't really have anything to hide about driving around town, but you look at the situation we live in when Washington wants to control and run everything. I just feel uncomfortable about the whole idea. And also, too, it's $50,000 for 2 years. I guarantee you the next time it's time up, it's going to be 70 or 80.
Yeah, he said the first four were, or the second four were free. I mean, it's like, no, you're just 50% off, and it's just it's a selling game, you know. But you bring up like you're uncomfortable with it nationally, because keep in mind, our local police department has this. They don't have the transport portal up. We don't know who else has access to our cameras in our city or our county. These could be shared with every police department from here to Kentucky or wherever. We don't know. And they're also often legitimately and illegitimately used by federal places. And you bring up, it's like, okay, you'd expect this or maybe not expect this in Orlando. The thing that's interesting to me, is I've been following these for a while, is that everybody hates these. Everybody hates these. I talked to the libertarians about a month and a half ago. They all hated it because it was obviously Fourth Amendment right and very sketchy stuff going on there. You guys hate this probably because of that same sort of stuff going on. And a lot of Democrats hate this because they're afraid ICE is going to knock down the doors or whatever. It's all, nobody likes this. And the interesting, I'm going to tell you a story. Denver, Colorado, they tried to push these through, very hush-hush like this kind of. They kind of got caught. The city council voted, once they realized that the jig was up, city council, mostly Democrats, voted no on this 12-0. And the mayor, also Democrat, couldn't get it passed. And so the representative came up to him and told him, was like, hey, You know, it's like you're trying to get like $700,000 worth of flock contract here. You know, you can probably do it for $498,500, and that's below the limit where they have to actually take a vote on it. He did that. In finance, that's called structuring. In finance, you take many years in jail for that. And he did that and pushed it through anyways. They're still investigating that. This is not a blue issue. This is not a red issue. This is not a libertarian issue. This is an American issue. This is a privacy issue. This is a human rights issue. And for some reason, there's a disconnect between the people deciding to put these up and the people that put them in charge. There's a disconnect, and there's a sidestepping of this whole democratic process we call America.
I have issues, obviously, issues with the cameras, for obvious reasons, okay? But I have, more importantly, I have issues with how they're getting there. We are not a democracy where they get to sit up there and tell us how they're gonna vote after the fact, after we're already here. They're supposed to ask us how we feel about the situation. They're supposed to take those things back to their council, and then they're supposed to vote on it according to what we have said, the majority. Now, all of us are supposed to be engaged in that process and know what's coming up. But if we don't know about what's coming up, that's on them. They have to let us know in advance how and what this is all about in order to vote for it. And that's where I have the bigger issue.
And my thing is, like, this is before I did heavy research into Flock the company, into Flock the devices, into all those security issues, into all the obviously legitimate scares with constitutional rights and things. Before they could even sell us on Flock, before they could say, it's okay, we'll stop crime, it's okay, you can trust us, before they even tried to do that, in my eyes, they completely and utterly destroyed any trust they had because they tried to slip it in. Yeah. Because they didn't do it the right way, because they took a fundamental, massive shift in police doctrine. Instead of, oh, let's look out for bad guys, it's pretty much stop and frisk on a global level. It's a dragnet, 24/7, 365. It is, they tried to take a massive step in changing the way they police things.
Two things. One, I'd like to have Jason at some point get a chance to talk about this. But
sorry about that.
No, well, I don't know that he wants to go right now, but I would say, going back to the block cameras, ultimately, from our standpoint, this has to be a question of constitutionality.
Right.
The Constitution is there as a protection for the American people against an overbearing government. Now, there are two amendments currently that Flock is being sued over in courts, both on First Amendment rights and on Fourth Amendment rights. Those cases are currently ongoing. Norfolk, Virginia is one of those sites where Fourth Amendment stuff has been going on. But we need to remember this as well. Our law enforcement in the state of Florida are required to take an oath that they will uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Florida. So if there is a question of constitutionality of this, then that has to be addressed as they are not meeting their duty in that regard. That's on the sheriff and the police chief, particularly. But then the question is, who handles that? Well, from the police chief's end, it's got to be city council. So if you're inside the city limits and you have some concern about this, you need to address this to your city councilman or your city councilwoman. And they need to bring it up, and they need to have Chief Davis speak to it. If you're not in city limits, or even if you are, that you're in county, that's got to go to the county commission. Because ultimately, the sheriff answers the county commission, but he also answers to the electorate. So that's on Sam St. John. He's the one who would have to sign the contract in the county. So if it's a concern from a constitutionality standpoint for you, if you're concerned about these things, it should be publicly handled by our county commissioners and by our city council. That's the only way I can see this getting redressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead. But we do want to let Jason have a word too.
3 minutes before Jason gets a word. 3 minutes, promise. 180 seconds. But or.
No. If you think he's going to talk for 3 minutes, you're wrong.
Oh. Okay, I'll get the 3 minutes part done. I'm so sorry, Moses. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Okay. So I've heard.
Wait, our founders, Benjamin Franklin, I think Thomas Jefferson, they said those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. That's specific to these flock cameras. You can't say otherwise. Now, there's also, everybody knows about the cell tower pings on your phones.
Yeah.
They use that with a warrant and I'm all for that with a warrant, as long as the judge ain't good. And about probably close to half qualify for that. I'll give you the names of a few if you want some. Also with the cell tower pings, the cell phone cell tower pings, have been taken to the United States Supreme Court, and they have found the cell tower pings unconstitutional if they're not done with a warrant. The flock cameras have exceeded the violation, the infringement of our constitutional rights beyond the cell tower pings. It hasn't made it to this gentleman mentioned it's already been in lower courts. It will reach the Supreme Court, and it will be found unconstitutional, no doubt about it. And so,
But it's a
for
private
our
company.
Police department and our sheriff's department to do this behind our backs, as it's been pointed out, you can't say it any other way, behind our back. And I'm glad this man that's sitting here tonight ain't the one that decided that. It shouldn't go. We should not let it. I was so proud when this young man came to American Patriots and gave his presentation. And he's actually expanded it a little bit. So, all right, I'm
Thanks.
2 minutes.
Okay.
Well done.
I'll get 3 minutes, I promise. So, I've heard a lot of arguments for flock cameras. Obviously, there's a lot of discourse on Facebook. A lot of the arguments, though, I think are totally faulty. I'm going to address them now because I imagine they might come up after I'm done talking. A lot of people think, oh, I have nothing to hide, nothing to fear. That is a BS argument. If you have nothing to hide, show me your cell phone. I will find something you want hidden, something you don't want others to know about that's entirely legal, whether it's your browsing habits or something. You'll find something. That is BS. Plus, even if you trust people, even if you are absolutely 100% confident that the police department has nothing against you, they will not screw anything up, that they are a completely law-abiding and good human being in heart, people make mistakes. And it's easy to make mistakes when you have more data. It's easy to cherry pick. If you give me your location data for the past year or the past 2 years, I am sure I can fit you close to a crime. I'm sure I can pull you over. I'm sure that if you bump your rear bumper against something with your car and drive around later, oh, it happened, there was a hit and run nearby and you drove by it in your car, we saw the image before and after this week, and now you're a prime suspect for a hit and run. There will be mistakes. Speaking of a mistake, there's a kid in Arizona. Kid in Arizona, about 17 years old, gets pulled over. This really hit me hard. He gets pulled over, and I see the body cam footage, and for the life of me, I can't find the footage anymore. They probably took it down because he was a minor or something, but I can't find it. But I remember it very well resonated with me. They pull him over. They direct him out of the car. They hold him at gunpoint. Hold him, 17-year-old kid at gunpoint because I think he stole a car, did something real bad. And he does all of the same. They get him down on the ground, all this stuff. And then they find out real fast, it's like, that's a 1, not a 7. What the heck? And they're about ready to let him go, but his mom, who's nearby, he called his mom. His mom was angry. Gets over and starts losing on him. And the words they say, like, they really stuck out to me. They said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. We were just going off of what the system said." I'm sorry, ma'am, that we are going off of what the system said. Let me reiterate that. We're sorry, ma'am. We held your son at gunpoint because we were only following orders. Do you see the picture? Do you see what's wrong with this? We are replacing humans with machines with very little oversight. And honestly, truly, I'm not sure if I can ever trust even whatever oversight they put in forward. There's this thing called dispersion of responsibility. Oh yes, I trust this whole system because they're going to double check the cameras unless they trust the protocol, which is 95% or more. There will be failures. I don't trust this, and we are expanding the scope of police work dramatically by having cameras everywhere all the time, 24/7, and it scares me. Sorry, I know I'm running out of time here. I don't think this is normal. I don't think we should accept it. People are going to say things like, oh, well, you've got a phone. Therefore, you don't have any privacy. Or, oh, you're in a public place. You don't have any privacy. Also BS. Do you think it's okay that we get directed advertisement? Do you think it's okay that we already have these issues? You can't be okay with it. You can't have a defeatist attitude. It's not going to be a good attitude to have, whether it's now or at the founding of this country. It's a bad idea. And then finally, oftentimes I hear, oh yes, if it prevents one death, if it saves one child from molestation. No, that's a terrible argument. It doesn't scale well. It feels good. It's emotionally great, but it's a terrible argument. Just lots and lots and lots and lots of bad things have happened in the name of saving one person or saving one child or saving one thing. Think of COVID. Oh, Lord, help us. If these were around during COVID, mask mandates, stay at home, or else these cameras will catch you. No, we'd be screwed. This is not a good thing. We got to get these things out of here. I suggest we, A, make sure people who are decision makers are absolutely held to the fire until this gets corrected. I think we should have these cameras covered up in black trash bags and wrapped around before the contract is over. I don't care. Get them out, okay? And then secondly, recent ruling in Washington, they found that since they don't require Fourth Amendment for some strange reason, you can do Freedom of Information requests on them. I suggest we do that. Let's hammer people with Freedom of Information requests. I want to see exactly what data they get since it's in public view, and we do it that way. The British, I'm not sure how many of you guys have seen Cool Hand Luke, the movie. What's the opening scene of that? The British are taking that route. I don't think we should take that route. I think it's a bad idea. I would never suggest breaking the law, but the British are definitely taking these out that way. I think that's about it. I'll let you guys do it now. Thanks.
Hey, and I wanted to say that the case to the Supreme Court on those pink cameras is Washington versus USA.
I've actually got it, I'll give it to you.
I think there's a number on it too.
Wow, he's really short. Yeah, when Miss Lisa called me to do this, a couple different things. First of all, just to cover some ground. I'm bringing you information. It's your job to determine what you do with it. The only thing I would caution in inflection and all that taken, well in tone. I've used that statement in recent, being careful to separate my personal life from my professional life. Sacrifice liberty for the sake of security. Even though he was arguing taxation for the well-renowned Penn family back in that day, it definitely stands for what it stands for. And I've always considered myself a constitutional, somewhat libertarian. I think you're a stronger libertarian than I am, so denoting that. But I'm just bringing you the information. I can tell you this, the department that I work at, the people that I work with, and I can only say it, you have to figure out what you're going to do with the words that I give you. There's no nefarious intent. Our job is to look for bad people, take them off the streets, to separate them from the people that they prey on. And this, for us, at least in device, was looked at as just one more tool in that. I'll give you the history of where it came from and how it developed. My understanding is Garrett Langley actually, the LPR systems have been around, the system itself has been around since the 70s. It's been mostly used in the capacity it's being used in now since the early 2000s in the state of Florida. Since about 2010, Doral City was one of the first to develop or to implement the system. LPR, automated license plate reader, is essentially what the LPR portion stands for. The cameras themselves are standalone devices that use IR and high resolution photography to take pictures of mostly the way the Florida setup is, and a lot of this is governed by state statute. Some of the CGIS information and GovCloud information is covered by federal statute and state statute. But these cameras are set up in our area as rear facing only. The primary objective is to take a picture of the license plate, use that information to download it into GovCloud, and then match it with the CGIS information that exists in the Federal Bureau of Investigation's criminal justice information system that we use through dispatch. So in other words, if committed a crime and I've got the warrant, I enter the warrant in nationwide, NCIC, FCIC, CJIS is how we get that information. So that if I get out with you on a call and I run your driver's license, your date of birth, your name, that CJIS system, the Criminal Justice Information System, is what delivers that warrant intel to me to know that you have a warrant. The camera technology came to our information about 8 or 9 years ago through a conference that Buddy Williams had attended. We did a short-term deployment here with another company. I think there's about 23. Flock is a popular company. It's probably one of the quickest growing companies. There's about 23 different manufacturers of our technology LPR systems. I think about 13 of them operate in the state of Florida. The technology was pitched, we deployed it temporarily, looked over the system, utilized the system. It was a good tool. We didn't have the funds or the means or the resources back then in the budget to pursue it, but it had always been on our radar as an additional tool. And as I tell you how it operates, you'll understand why we were looking at the tool as it is. And then in 2019, the Pro Arms burglary that I worked, about 50 different firearms were stolen. Orlando Police Department, the University of Central Florida in Orlando had LPR systems set up. Our crime linked to their crime for computer break-in, the same group. There was a large gang that operated out of the Pembroke Park area down there. LPR technology in Orlando correlated with Ocala and the information that we gained here to put all those cases together. And that's where it came back up as a success story. Unfortunately, one of the lead witnesses we had in that case was murdered by that gang, and so we kind of lost that case investigation along the way, and it still remains mostly unsolved for us, which really sucks because that was a really big deal. So, so that's just the kind of behind the scenes of how this came about. Just giving you some roots for where this information came to us and how we pursued it. And there was no backroom, cloak and dagger deals. Which trust me, I spend a good bit of my time, if you look at my algorithms, researching our government and not trusting our government and all that, and I know I am one. So I understand when I tell you that. I realize right now I'm the object of your concern. So, and I get it. You really have to figure out, you guys have to figure out, what you do with the information that's given to you and then move accordingly. For the last 4 years, I've learned that more than anybody. Get out the vote didn't do us any good unless you got out the vote and didn't vote the right way, and then I despise it. No, I was just levity, sorry. So anyway, so the LPR system, what they actually do. So what the LPR, the operating of the LPR system in the state of Florida statutes govern this operation this way. We don't use it for civil enforcement, we use it for criminal investigative services. State statute governs that here. We're not using it to look for the average. It doesn't attach a speeding citation. It's not used. I know we had recent conversations about school zone speeding camera systems. That's a whole different system. This isn't a civil servant fine system. This is a criminal investigative tool. My understanding is that Garrett Langley actually developed this, although this information had been around. This particular system, Flock, was developed as a result of a string of burglaries that had occurred in his neighborhood, and as an inventor, he and a group of friends set out to develop this system for that purpose. What we utilize the system for primarily is criminal investigations, looking for, there's two different types. That information that I told you, information that's already in the system of CJIS, NCIC, FCIC for like warrants, DUI, or not DUIs, I'm sorry, stolen vehicles, people with arrest warrants, missing, endangered people who have been entered in properly through the system that are lawfully allowed to be entered in, abducted, whatever. That system will have that information. So what happens is the camera's not attached to that system. The camera takes a picture of the tag of a vehicle, and it takes every picture, so you just full transparency on this. Every car that goes by, it's set up to take rear facing of the vehicle. Now, it also takes fingerprint pictures for the vehicle. So in other words, let's say you don't have a tag, there's certain outliers that you can put in there, like bumper stickers and different things like that. The camera will also focus in on those and do what we call vehicle fingerprinting. So if I say certain ones, it has a filter limit reach, but if I say red Ford Focus 2-door right fender bumper sticker, it'll take those and then it'll show me pictures of vehicles that could match that possibility, then it's up to me to further that investigation. If it's the tag that I put in, for instance, if I'm looking for a specific tag, then it'll give me that vehicle. It'll take a picture of the tag, that tag information, and I've got some jargon that I'm gonna read to you, because I'll give you my source on it, but tell you how that works. But that tag information goes to GovCloud. It matches to that CGIS information, and if that vehicle is attached to that warrant for arrest, for instance, it'll notify the officer almost real time that person's wanted. And I'm not going to waste a bunch of time telling you the success stories, because I think you guys have heard those in fairness to what it's Addison, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
all good.
Fairness to what Addison was saying, there's a lot of success stories out there, yes, but again, I would agree with him, even not from a governmental standpoint as much as I would a personal standpoint, that success stories don't tell you should do something, right? If it's unconstitutional, it doesn't matter how much success there is. We know that. A success story for me would be kick your door in without a warrant, go get you because you got drugs, but we have a constitution that prevents me from doing that, right? So separating those two things. But for instance, the recent, and Herman Gunther and I were talking about this case outside a little bit, the recent case of the Quincy homicide suspect that was caught here in Suwannee County. Essentially what happened, that vehicle goes past the camera, gets the tag. Quincy had entered the tag based on the investigative information they had at their scene. They had identifying information from the vehicle. This guy, I don't know if you guys know the story, but essentially went into a gas station, he killed 2 people, shot 2 others, critically injured them. There's a bunch of history behind why he did all that, but at the scene, they just had vehicle identifying information. They put that in and were able to identify that murder suspect from a flock camera in that area, that region. Later, that car passed that same vehicle that had been identified and matched to that, entered as that homicide suspect, passed by another flock camera close to an ag station. It was actually agriculture that got on him at first. FHP joined in once they were in pursuit. Pursuit led to Suwannee County, and they shot with a deputy, and our guys got him later, the next day. But essentially what happens, that car passed in front of a flock camera. Investigators looked and said, yeah, that matches all our car description. We look at this video, it matches. Here's his tag. Now we enter his tag. Now we have more information. The next time he passed another flock camera, other officers were alerted to that suspect and got onto him. So that's how the system operates. The system is designed to delete the hard data. The data that when it's saying that it's holding, all of that CGIS data is separate. That's federal government stuff. They hold that. They give that to us. Flock doesn't have that. They don't have access to that. The data that Addison's talking about is the data, picture data they're taking of your vehicle, of the tag, and that information. To my knowledge, currently, as far as a FOIA request, that is not, it's 119 restrictive, and that's because it has your personal data, except to you, I think, Addison. So I think you could, I need to research that and be clear. I think you can request a FOIA on your own car, but like you couldn't have Mr. Klepper's vehicle. So that's essentially how they work. The second way is that if, Moses has, he calls me, hey, I have a burglar in my house, then I go to his house, then, building on the information that I get through the investigation, or just, I can go back and put in certain information and ask Flock to look for these things and look for somebody that was in the area and develop a suspect that way, based on picture information. Like they did with that homicide, when they had video data from the store in the car description, they put that into the system and developed it through the Flock investigatorial, if that makes sense. So any questions about that in specific so far? Okay, all right. So,
Jason?
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt you, but you made a comment, and I'm believing what you're saying.
I see a few people falling asleep too, so if I'm boring you, tell me to move on, I will.
But
yeah,
my thing is also about them saying after 30 days,
yep,
or whatever I guess the person paying for the camera says, that information is totally and completely deleted. That's, if they told you that, I believe that that's what you heard and that's what they told you.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. My concern
Do
is,
that.
in this day and time, it's even like hard drives on your own desktop at home. It's amazing what can be found that you thought was deleted.
yep,
And I know we have to kind of separate what we've seen on television that's kind of out there and the reality. But anymore, it's getting to where the reality is a little more like the TV's out there stuff, which is rather disconcerting, I think, to the average person. And I think transparency is a big thing for me. No matter who's talking and whatever side they're looking at it from, I wish that I could, if there was something, in my brain or whatever that would go off, this is true, this is false, but in this day and time, there's so lack about government and the people under which supposedly voted for them.
Yeah.
That lack of transparency. In Orlando, I had no trust in the government there. That's one reason I'm not there.
Right.
I had the option to leave when I retired, and that's why I left.
I'm gonna, at the risk of addressing this and this coming back to haunt me, I'm gonna just tell you right off the bat, this isn't something that's discussed a lot. You guys know that the jail, you can make phone calls in jail, right? Everybody knows they can make phone calls in jail. One of the first things a jail phone call does when you make a phone call is it tells the inmate, this is being recorded. This line is being recorded. We can listen to those phone calls later, right? I don't tell people in the jail every time that I interview them, your phone call is being recorded, because I can use the recorded phone call because you've been told it's been recorded to listen to the information that you're talking about with somebody over the phone. I don't tell them that I'm listening to the phone call because then that word starts to get around and they stop using the phone, right? So it's an apprehensive tool. Now, again, I get what you're saying. You're trusting the government. In essence, you guys, I'm standing up here with a loaded firearm on my head, and everything that I do, you're trusting the government. I'm not saying that's the argument for letting us have those tools. That's why we have a Second Amendment right that allows the people to be armed. As far as I know, it's the only thing that kept the Japanese off of our shores. It wasn't the fear of our army, it was the fear of every farmer that had a pistol. But you are putting me in a position to trust me with something that's dangerous and deadly. In essence, NCIC, FCIC is the same thing, transmittably. And to your point, when you said that's enough that you could hire a full-time officer. There's an old saying, you can outrun the police, but you can't outrun the what? Radio. Why is that? Why is that saying true? Because I'm here, you outran me, but I get on the radio and who's up the road? Another cop that I just talked to on the radio. And this is, the nature of this tool, this is what we were looking at from an aesthetics point of a tool, is when you said you could hire one more person, imagine 8 more that are in the area that I can look for this vehicle with, right? So, and I get it, and this is something Addison addressed. He's like, this is what you're gonna hear, be wary of this, and I get that, man. Absolutely be wary of the government. I'm just telling you while we were looking at the tool. The tool for me is, I say this all the time as a department. I like, and this is one of the things, again, being careful to separate my personal and private life is one of the things I ran on. I like my agency because it taught me to do, economically, it taught me to do work with duct tape and monkey wrenches. My daddy already taught me this, but I can do phenomenal amounts of work with tools that aren't designed for what they're designed for, because we work, the city of Live Oak, I had to watch the sheriff's office tout their calls for a long time, right? 2,000 calls for service, blah, blah, blah. 2,000 calls for service, 50 people on the road, 10 investigators. I have 1,000 calls for service with 12 people on the road, at the time 1 investigator. I had to do a lot more work with a lot less people, and there's 7,000 people in the city, not 48,000 people that are in the county, and that's where our revenue comes from. So our budget is considerably lower. So for the sake of the tool, and again, not arguing the tool versus the lost security, because that is a good argument. For the sake of a tool, we're looking at this as a tool going, man, how much, because I heard one of the people on there say, this is just another reason for them to be lazy. Actually, you guys, this puts my guys to work. This isn't lazy, this is giving them more to do, but it spreads out our resources and gave us the ability to broaden the net for us, criminally speaking. There's a lot of misunderstandings about it. I saw a lot of people saying, we're going to get more tickets out of this, it's taking your face, it's biofacial, and all of that. I don't disagree with that. Could you take this system and convert it into any of those things that he talked about? Biofacial recognition systems. So most of this, most of the computer, and he can talk to this more than I can because this isn't my expertise, but most of our memory is now static drive is probably the
Yeah, solid state, something like that.
Yeah, so which is mostly an erase and replace. Can you have memory that you missed in deleting? Yes. I'll tell you how they sanitize this stuff. Experts can deal with that more, but static drive typically is erase and replace, right? So it erases the old, it puts new on it. The new is what's erasing the old, and then they go back and they sanitize it through a bigger process. But yeah, all of these things, you can go back on all of these things and say, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? And all that's true. And honestly, there's, what if you have a bad actor? All I can tell you is the things that we're putting in place for that. For instance, I'm going to check our transparency portal, and that's the other thing. I'm still learning this system. The contract that was signed on January, it took over it was almost 5 months for the permits for DOT. So these go on public land, or not public land, but publicly accessible right-of-ways through DOT. It has to be permitted by DOT. It took almost 5 months to get those things passed, and then installation set up. The site prep and the installation took almost 7 months for them to do that. As far as as far as addressing like the underhanded sneakiness or any of that, there was none of that. I was involved in this operation. I think the whole time we were just pursuing it like we were the speed trailers that we put out, the new radars that we bought, the trailer that we bought for other equipment. You guys probably don't know anything about that either. Now, as far as publicly putting it out there, I told you who we're looking for with these. We're looking for criminals. So we didn't necessarily desire to broadcast this in a public way, because if you're a criminal, what are you going to do with these LPRs? And to his point earlier, one of the first things I saw people saying is, I heard this thing's got gold in them. Well, what are you telling each other? Go break them down, tear them, break them up, tear them down and all that. So, that's, so I don't know. Let me real quick, did we even address what you asked? Did I address what you asked?
I think you did. I wanted to just throw one more thing at you, what I meant to say a little earlier. Twice I've received, and I realize these cameras are not what I'm going to talk about, but twice I've gotten in the mail, you owe us $180-something because you were speeding. Well, my wife will tell you that if anybody speeds, it's not me. I'm just not. She whines a lot. She said, no, go a little faster. And I'm like, no, I just like 60, 65 is fine. But twice I got this in the mail, and it's got this thing saying, you were caught by a speed camera, and this is your bill, and you need to pay it in 30 days or you're going to pay more. And I open this thing up, and I look at that, and I'm looking at the picture, because it shows you a picture, and I'm like, did we get a new car? I didn't know that. This isn't our car.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, it misread the plate.
Yep.
And I get the bill.
I don't think,
And
that's not legal.
thankfully,
The citation. Yeah.
I've made a call, one to Texas and one to Tennessee. And the one in Texas, I've never even been in Texas. How can I have gotten there? And they were willing to, get rid of it and drop it. But I've also heard horror stories where people have gone through the mill to try to get themselves off that hook. I guess the moral of that little point was machines make mistakes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so recently, there is automated citation devices, speeding devices out there. We were recently, the city, I stood on y'all's good side of this one, I think, to my boss's demise, but the city pursued the idea of installing speed cameras in the school zones. So, talking about, a good point for a good reason, right? We don't want to speed in the school zones. Kids are our most vulnerable. That's the one group of people we should protect. My opposition to that was just, I don't know, civil fines and cameras, and for that reason, there's a lot of, now, in that situation, what you're supposed to do is develop a policy. The camera takes the picture, and I was gonna address this with the traffic stop in Arizona that he said, and I can only address our policy. I'm also speak a little bit to nefarious or bad actors. It's supposed to always depend on a human oversight, right? So the camera takes a picture, somebody's supposed to look at that, like, have we installed these school? One of the things we were gonna have to do is put an officer in place on an hourly basis to approve every citation before it goes out. Look at the camera, ensure that it's accurate, and then send it out. They're supposed to do that. I would say 90% of the time when you call those companies and say this isn't my car, it's an error picture. We've gotten those too. Then they'll take them down. They'll take it. But yeah, there's going to be error in automation. There's going to be human error. Where there's not error in automation, there's human error. We have that. I've had it. I arrested a guy when I was 3 years on the job. He's still a member of this community. He had the same exact name and the same exact date of birth as the man with the warrant. Unfortunately, my policy didn't dictate to run a social security number. We're still friends to this day. The other fellow that had the warrant is actually deceased at this point. But, you know, I had to make an apology because there was an error in the warrant information that had come down, and, you know, it led to a mistake, a bad mistake, you know, admittedly. So, yeah, there's human error, there's computer error. As far as oversight goes, we statutorily have to have a policy in place. Most of our policy is governed by our CJIS data. I'm actually our TAC for that, along with many other hats. The policy is to do audits for the information. Again, I'll check the transparency because we would have no issue with opening up the transparency portal to Flock. Our office operates best on the accountability of transparency, so I want you guys to be able to see what we're doing, unless it injures the investigation. So what part of my job is on the different platforms that we have, and just to give you some ideas, some of the different platforms we use for the sake of transparency. Biofacial recognition. We use links information, which links us nationally to policing information and report systems where I can look at reports in Washington, D.C. We use NCIC, FCIC, CJIS. I use Florida Department of Licensing through David. We use Falcon, fingerprint recognition information. There's probably 2 or 3 more, and I audit those. It's a nightmare. Our CJIS audit is a 3-year audit. It's huge. Every 3 years we audit that. I audit links on an annual basis. I audit David on a quarterly basis. The Flock LPR is a monthly audit. And an audit is essentially where I look at the individual officer's work and determine based on, we have parameters that you have to enter a case number that allows me to go back to CAD and look at the entry for CAD, which is the computer automated dispatcher at the sheriff's office for the call, and the information for the vehicle entry and the vehicle stop, to make sure that it's being adhered to as a criminal investigation and all that the law requires, to make sure that I don't have an angry boyfriend tracking his ex-wife, or, you know, because we have, again, going back to what Addison said in full agreement, we have bad actors in law enforcement. I know that may take you guys by surprise if you, well, I started making a smarmy comment about last night, but we have bad things. We have poor oversight. We have, man, I serve on the Florida Baptist Convention for the state of Florida, and we spent almost a year going over policy for churches for sexual violence in the workplace. You know, I mean, that should say it all. The heart of a man is desperately wicked, who could know it, you know? So yeah, we're gonna have some of that, and you guys as citizens, I would continue to tell you to stay on top of that. You know, I agree with you, is what I'm saying. But I'm just, as far as this device goes, and right now the case law, the case that Mr. Moses was referring to, U.S. Carpenter, the court noted that while individuals regularly leave their vehicles, the compulsory carry cell phones with them at all times. This highlights the difference between a continuous cell phone GPS tracking of a person, which reveals private information, and single point images taken. That case was held by the Supreme Court. Currently in the courts, the support for the LPR is overwhelmingly in support of, currently in the courts. Now, whether those cases will bear that out, I don't know. Notable cases: legal boundaries and privacy expectations. United States versus Yang in the Ninth Circuit held that Yang had no reasonable expectation of privacy in the vehicle, failed to return to the rental company. Wilcox, 11th Circuit, upheld LPR data, finding no Fourth Amendment violation when law enforcement used to track suspects' movements. Toombs, United States. I've got about 12 of these that cover the case laws in contradiction to that cell phone case that was cited earlier. In the LPRs, versus the cell phone. The cell phone it's a device that's personally carried on you at all times, tracks your every movement. The LPRs are put in public places where the public has no expectation of privacy along public highways or DOT accessible highways. And again, the purpose for us, and I didn't get one.
I'll slip mine.
The purpose for us is criminal investigation. So, you know, they're a really good tool. But again, I wouldn't sacrifice our freedom for a really good tool. I can tell you this, and going with what Herman said, if the courts, the Supreme Courts hold this is anti-Fourth Amendment and unconstitutional, they'll be gone for us. That's a no-brainer. You know, there's a lot of good tools available to me in law enforcement that I can't have access to that would help. And how would I use this power to do good? Right? I know myself. Until I didn't, because you know that was one of the things I wanted to put in place. If I succeeded with where I was going, was 5 people that always have a right to tell you, hey, you're not who you said you were going to be, because even I don't trust myself. So you know, I think it's good to have oversight. I think the arguments that are being made are all good. This is, as far as law enforcement goes, this is a valuable tool. The reason I say that is because it extends our capabilities with our current monetary situation and manpower applications. It gives us information real time that we wouldn't otherwise have unless we had been there in person to see it. It ties that information together in accurate ways that we can visibly ensure that that information is accurate personally. And it puts that information together in a scientific pattern that will evidence the fact of a person's movements being bolstered to a crime. That's why we like it, frankly. I'm not writing citations or anything like that on it.
So now that y'all have the cameras,
Yes, ma'am.
at least for the next year, well, 2-year contract, at least for another year, it is currently a license plate reader.
Yes, ma'am.
And we didn't hear from city council or county council when it went in. If it goes beyond that to facial recognition, to citation writing cameras,
Yeah.
will we get the information then from Chief of Police, Sam St. John at the county council, commissioners, or will we have to just keep asking at meetings?
Yeah, no, that's a
Is
valid
this-
point. You know, I honestly don't know how to answer that for you. I don't, like I said, my interest in concealing anything is only success ever. I don't think this was really concealed. It wasn't intended to be concealed. It's not. I mean, I was here for the process. Again, I'm not the signature on this, and I don't want to dump responsibility on somebody who's not here and just simply say I had nothing to do with it. I looked at this tool in the last 5 or 6 years of my profession and liked the tool for my profession. Agreed with the audit the things that were in place to audit the system to ensure. Trust me, I'm responsible for what my guys do. You won't hear me stand in the microphone and say, well, the reasons I'm having trouble is because somebody else dropped the ball. That's my responsibility below, right? So I don't want to do that here tonight, but I don't know how that would be answered. I don't foresee that happening in our area, but again, we never thought we'd be here tonight too. I don't see why that would be withheld from you guys as the public. That has a lot more implication on the public. And again, I think the primary reason that this wasn't necessarily a public comment is because the tool we were after was a tool to catch bad guys. And it wasn't really necessarily seen as a public intrusion that I'm now seeing. You know, I mean, honestly, I know that may sound a little sheepish and a little ignorant, but it wasn't really thought of as a public intrusion. It was really like, we're on the same team and our job is to catch the bad guys, and you guys are going to be excited that we're going to catch more bad guys because of this tool. Lake City installed, I think they have 20 flock cameras. They also have 40 through the same company. They have 40 gunshot detections. I know we've all been seeing the algorithms of Lake City is the #2 worst city in the state of Florida for a long time. That's actually changed since they've installed these gunshot readers. I don't know how I feel about the gunshot system yet. Part of my issue is you overtax my people with too much work, and we you know, like I get your FOIA, but please, I have to do the FOIA request, and you guys have no idea how much time I spend on these FOIA requests. Like, and we can charge for them, but I don't. I do them for free, but it takes a huge. If you get mad at me and start doing for you requests,
I'm not mad at you
just
personally. Just to be clear, there's nothing personal. Not even against Keith Dennis. Nobody. I'm just.
I'm not taking it personal, but I'm saying, like, if you guys want to start doing FOIA requests, guess what I'm gonna be doing for you for the next.
Jason,
I'm gonna be working for FOIA requests, right?
I'd say this to you, and I'm just saying it to you because
Yep.
you're here. Something that at least I liked in Orlando is that all the school zones that had, meters with your speed and all that stuff
Mm-hmm.
were based upon when the school was actually open, not Saturday at midnight,
Yeah.
not Sunday at noon. And I really, because what happens when you have something like that, where there's no timer or anything in the machine, you just become numb to it. Your vision, your whole thing is, oh, it's just, school's not now. All summer long, school's not been going. They really need, things that are like that are time sensitive, or, day sensitive. I know it would cost some money to fix those things, but it would be nice if you knew that those were actually true.
Yeah.
I'm going down 136 and I'm going by Westwood, that thing's going on all the time.
Yeah,
and
no,
school's not all the
I don't
time.
disagree. There's several different things going on there. Some of those signs, the equipment in them, it's either replaced, you can't repair. Some of them are outdated to the point where they can't put new parts in them. Is one of the things. But
Is it the county that's responsible for those?
no, well, the city has some of them. DOT has some of them, and I think the county has some of them. That was the reason I wasn't in support of the citable cameras. I'm a big believer in the science of culture changing driving patterns through culture. I think sometimes it has to be punitive, right? There's times where you look at the situation and go, you've been told 3 times, I've got to write you a $115 ticket. But sometimes, listen, I have cruise control on my vehicle most of the time. Why? Because I'm a daydream driver and my foot will start going 80 miles an hour before I notice it. Y'all tell anybody, I'm gonna deny it. But so this is why I don't make a good politician. Culture can be changed by 3 different ways. Number one, it can be changed punitively. You're not driving, you're not changing your pattern, so I have to force you through another means to change it. It can be changed by, I stopped you and you're like, dude, I never speed, I'm telling you. My wife will tell you. She argues with me all the time. I was just absentmindedly. And I say, well, I look at this and say, the traffic stop was jarring to this individual. Or just one of those momentary things like something else happened and I intervened. Mom's on her way, kids won't do what they're supposed to. We're late for church for the 15th time where that family walks in. So there's different ways. That's why I didn't like the automated citable things, but that's civil offense. That's a little different. And for the most part, it's people that aren't criminal in mind. Civil infractions are people that are usually hazardous or neglectful for a minimal point of time. Criminal's different. That's an interest and an intent to do harm to others or gain goods against or with the harm of others. And that's what we were pursuing with these. But I don't disagree with anything. And one thing I would take back to my supervisors is one of the things that people are, it seems, most upset about. I think we're probably on different, you guys are probably on different levels of concern or animosity about this, but what seemed to be kind of the slipping it in. And again, the only thing I can say to that is to be bluntly honest with you and say, hey, we're out to catch criminals. That's why the major announcement. No major announcement. We're trying to catch criminals. So if you're trying to catch a criminal, the last thing you do is herald to the criminals, say we're trying to catch you. So
I don't see too many criminals showing up to city council meetings.
But listen, Addison, you're
Be honest.
But in order to do that, you would have to post that that's what's going to happen. And I do think that they read the meeting.
Yeah, fair enough.
But your post garnered a ton of. And I followed your post.
And I mapped it. I'm going to be honest. I saw there were 16 out. I went around. I was like, oh, I'm going to map this one. It's like Pokemon Go or whatever. It's
listen,
fun.
That's absolutely. Somebody asked
But I
me
think
about
it's
that.
wrong.
They're like, man, he's out there. I'm like, yeah, it's his absolute right to do. But your post attracted tons of, and that was your point. So I'm not, again, I'm not upset with you at all. You have an absolute right, constitutional duty to do that. But it attracted tons of information. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's going to be pretty popular for a while. And then the county afraid. And here's what. Listen, first of all, let me address something. I despise. I don't care. I'll argue this with anybody in here. If you want to debate it with me, I'll argue with you. This ChatGPT stuff it's wrong. It's wrong. It's not your words. Stop putting them out there as your words. I can't stand when people use ChatGPT. I despise that. The other reason is it marketably, I think you're right. I think that could have been addressed in person and directly, and this is the issue, and we can have the conversation. Where I'm not running from these cameras or what they're doing, and if the government or if you guys as the public impress upon the government that they need to go, then they need to go. I'm just telling you what they are for us and how they've operated. And we have seen a lot of success in Live Oak, and again, success isn't going to sell you if you feel like it's unconstitutional. So, but we have already seen quite a bit of success in our criminal pursuits here, criminal investigative pursuits here. So, you know, anybody, you got something to tell me? I feel like
I voted for you, so I'm into there. I think it's anti-constitutional and it's very anti-American.
yeah.
And I don't like it.
What makes you feel that way, if you don't mind me asking? Just because I want to inform myself too.
Because I've never been a criminal. I've always been a bookworm. But I don't like to be observed like I'm an animal, like I'm a sheep. Like
Yeah.
I don't have my authentic human right to be free.
Right.
And I moved here from Tampa Bay. This community is so warm and charming that I feel offended that something like this can be put in a group of people that have still value.
Yeah.
And it made me sad. It made me sad. And I love this country. I came here when I was 15 from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I love the whole concept of American freedom. I do. And that is against our birthright and anti-American.
When you say being pursued, what is it that you feel like the system, how do you feel like the system pursues you?
It's intruding. It's intruding like we are animals.
How, do you, and I'm just asking questions to understand, how so?
I will tell you. When I drive to the same road, I don't want people to, I don't want nothing to be taking pictures of my car the same road that I go. I feel like I've been observed.
So, and I'm
I
just,
drive like an old lady.
no, ma'am,
Here's
I understand, and I'm just working through this with you because that, you know, one of the first things I did when we had our, the most recent homicide, one of the first things I did when I got on scene was send 2 officers to canvas, and we got hold of 6 cameras. 3 of those developed pictures of the vehicle that was involved in the homicide force. That vehicle drove right in front of 3. Now those were private citizen vehicles, they weren't flock cameras. We didn't put them out there, we didn't install them. We just got the video information because the public shared them with us. So, and that's why I'm asking you the questions. I know to a degree it's like, well, you guys, this is your particular camera that you put out there and it's taking a picture of me. But understand that this system, while it's taking pictures of vehicles going by, the ones that we're looking at are the ones that either trigger an alert or that we've specifically entered an alert for. So like, I don't see your vehicle.
You probably will see it too slow.
No, but that's what I'm telling you, and the only reason I'm asking is because it may leave you feeling the same way. I understand, but understand that I'm not observing your vehicle. Does the camera take a picture of your vehicle? Yes. Do I get intel that it took a picture of your vehicle? No, not unless your vehicle has been entered as a wanted vehicle or on an alert that I'm looking for you. Now, again, and to the point that somebody had made, could a bad cop be looking for his girlfriend and find her that way? Yes, that is true. That's one of those things that exists. So any system that we have, any AI system that we have, any intellectual system that we have, one of the guys that we found through this was actually, just for the point of argument, one of the bad actors that we found through this system had placed a GPS tracker on his domestic violence victim that he was stalking. We were able to find him and apprehend him before he got a hold of her. So those were 2 technologies coming together that are both, issues. So, so it's the camera. The cameras. The system is a camera with a signal device. Takes a picture of the car. It sends it to Gov. The only way I get the information on the camera or the car or what the camera did or the car took is if that car's been entered as an alert. So I don't know. That's.
Jason?
I hate that you started. You voted for me. Makes you feel bad. Hang on. He's been waiting for just a minute. I'll come back.
I just want to answer what I think she's feeling.
Yeah.
And why. The hospital I worked at, the last one, we had outdoor seating for employees that wanted to sit
Yeah.
outside. And after several months, the administrator asked at a public thing, why don't any of you guys go outside and sit in the blah, blah area? It's really nice. And nobody said much, you know. Of course, I was getting not too far from retirement, so I could say what I wanted to say. Because you got two cameras sitting out there staring at the tables. Who wants to sit and eat with a camera staring at you? It's that same kind of, I mean, we weren't doing anything, we were just eating.
Yeah.
But it's that same kind of feeling, that you feel, you know, when you're constantly observed, or at least observed now and then, you feel like I must have something going on wrong with me because they're watching me. And I think that's how she feels, because I felt like that in Orlando. Every time I went around the corner, I made sure I didn't turn right on red too fast, because there's automated
Camera,
machine.
yeah. He was patient. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To piggyback on what she said, that the way they split it.
Right, or I know, right, but if you wear a gun, bad guys want your gun, they're not gonna tell you they're gonna take it and come and whack you, and I'm gonna be working cases, and he says, Jason, either you believe in the Constitution or you don't. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw him under the bus, that was Moses Klepper, and honestly, through that conversation with him over time, I changed my position on that.
True
I
story.
think he's right, I think he convinced me, number one, first of all, he convinced me that the science doesn't bear it out. You know, somebody else told me one time, they're like, we were talking about open carry, and he says, what's the closest open carry state? And I said, Georgia, it's right on our border. They're like, yeah, how many times you been in Georgia? I said, I go there quite a bit. When's the last time you seen a gun there? It was like 3 years ago. You don't see people carrying open carry, so it's not necessarily that you have open carry that you're gonna be open carry. So I'm saying that to tell you guys, like, I agree, sometimes we do stuff that's not constitutional. And if this is one of those things that is viewed by our Supreme Court as not constitutional, then I agree. I also think automation is running faster than we can catch it. For me personally, I think it's gonna lead to rapture and the end of the world anyway, but automation is running faster than we can catch it. That's scary. What our government does with it could be scary. And the thing is, when the government goes south, it's going south anyway. I can just tell you from our standpoint, what we were doing with this, I use biofacial recognition. You guys know that every time you walk into Lowe's, you walk into a biofacial recognition place? You knew that, okay. Yeah, a lot of people don't. They use, that technology. I didn't mean to dump on Lowe's all of a sudden, but yeah, so that stuff is out there.
What happens to that data?
That's private, they can.
It's private and you're entering their publicly accessible. And that's, right now, the LPR systems are currently, that's, the way the case law is being reviewed is essentially, like, and I get what you're saying, it's that sense that, well, you're following me and you're holding that data and you're always on me and you're always watching me. You drive by my police car 2 or 3 times, I bet that never crossed your mind. But because this is a camera, it's different and it's data
But
that's
we can
collected.
see the police car, and it's consent that we drive by it because we drive by it.
That's true.
Seeing it, but I didn't know that. They should have a big sign out there saying, if you come in here, we're gonna sell your pictures. Walmart has this.
There's a practicality and it scales well. Mike, I've got one question.
I'm coming back.
Yeah, all yours, man.
Let me make a quick distinction that's very important in this regard, and this is going back to constitutional issues. The Constitution is there to protect people from government use. This goes to her point, and to yours. You mentioned that at your last murder case, you pulled data. Those were from private citizens.
Yes, sir.
The
No
willingly
issue
gave
there
it up too,
whatsoever.
probably.
Yes.
They did.
No
They
issue
did.
whatsoever there. The difference with the flock cameras is this is contractually being done by government to put up cameras, and yes, we will have the argument that it's a private company's stuff,
Yeah.
but these are government cameras being used to surveil private citizens' vehicles. And that's the big difference, and that's where it comes into the constitutional aspect of, and I told you this before.
Yeah, I know.
If
Yeah.
had
You
this
said we were
stuff
gonna
and there
talk
was-
privately
and there
about
was
it.
a warrant, if you pull warrant,
Yeah.
there's no issue for me from that standpoint. But these are the ability to search a database that the government is signing contracts to put up around without warrant.
Mhm.
Now, it's great that y'all have something in place that you can go back and check to see that there's not bad actors in the police station searching for their ex-girlfriend or whatever else. But it's still a question of constitutionality.
Yeah,
And,
no.
and ultimately, to Moses' thing, that's gonna end up at some point at the Supreme Court as to whether this is a violation of either the
Yeah.
Fourth or
The-
the First Amendment.
The argument's going to be, and I'm not making this. I like the tool, and as long as I feel like I'm operating, and I told you this already, I'm not as libertarian as you are, so I know where I'm looking at it from, and with respect, so that you know exactly who I am. The argument's going to be for me the same way. Like right now, currently, by the power of a subpoena, I can pull bank records to track fraud because it wasn't. You didn't have a public expectation of privacy because you were doing a transaction with the business.
Right.
Right. So as a police, as a government, I can go pull, in a recent case that I just won in court was one with bank records I pulled by subpoena, not warrant.
Yes.
This is a publicly accessible place where these cameras are parked where there's no expectation of privacy.
Then why is it a privacy
is-
issue for, never mind.
It
I'll let
is,
you
no,
go
no,
ahead.
I'll come back
Go
to you, I
ahead.
promise. And I don't, you know, it is arguably a surveillance, but it's a publicly accessible place. And that's, right now, that's what the Constitution, what the courts have said, indifferent to the cell phone case. So, yeah, Addison, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll drop that.
No,
Well, no, I want to ask you like one major question. Yeah. Everything else I can research. We can research. We can have debates all day about the. But one thing I want to ask you in a professional and official capacity. You know, you're an investigator. I'm kind of investigating this myself a little bit.
Yeah.
How did it go down the chain of command? Who knew about these? When were they implemented? And what people did we elect gave a stamp of approval, and how so? In an official capacity, can you answer those sorts of questions?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't.
I want to know everybody involved. That way I can knock on their doors and say, hey, this is a problem. Either I'm voting you out or somebody else can take your place, or your boss is going to get voted out and you're going to get replaced.
Yeah.
Nothing against people personally. I just want to let that known. And I want a place to direct that.
Yeah, no, and that's why I kind of gave the background of how we came into contact with the flock cameras, the history of them, what piqued our interest, and then how we pursued them. Like all things that we pursue, typically these come through vendors that, you know, solicit us for their equipment, their devices, their whatever. That's how we got our first interest that I talked about earlier, the trial time that we went through, the other casework that we saw from other departments and success, and then we started pursuing it. That information flows through the department to the chief of police and then to the city manager. But it's a purchase process that we, you know, by policy adhered to for the purchase of the equipment and then implemented the equipment. It doesn't, that.
Did
purchase
any of
didn't go
the
through.
council members have any sort of say to deny,
I don't think they
approve?
were even involved in the purchase
That's
process.
what I wanted to confirm, because
As
I
far
didn't
as
want to put
know.
heat on them
Yeah.
necessarily. But essentially the sheriff and
The sheriff's is, so just to be clear
Or, I'm
too,
sorry.
the police department, the sheriff's flock cameras, they have 8 as well. Their flock cameras were actually obtained through the North Star
it was a grant or
agency
something, I
agreement
heard.
through the 17 different counties. That actually came through a grant and was implemented through North Star. Ours were purchased separately from that, directly from the budget. So, did that answer your question? Or?
Names, Captain. I need names.
I never thought I would ever be interrogating a police captain in my life.
The chief of police is Keith Davis. The city manager is Larry Sessions. All right.
Yeah, okay. I called Larry Sessions and okay.
Yeah. And
All right.
you know, but again, I'm not
Woo,
admitting
the
myself in
absurdity
that
of it.
process because you know I was involved in the research and background.
I want to make one comment, wasn't really a question, but just, I mean, if you're here, I think as a Republican, you're kind of always a little bit leery of the government oversight and everything, you know, just as a, you know, default setting for your nature. And so, you know, I mean, listening to you talk and stuff, like, I don't think there's anything nefarious in y'all's nature in trying to have this tool, you know, at your disposal to help solve crimes and catch bad guys. But, you know, I mean, and Addison made the comment about, can you imagine if these were here during COVID? I mean, good Lord, you know, people getting arrested for going to church and stuff. I mean, can you imagine if you just take that next little incrementalism step that government is infamous for, just a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, till, I mean, you know, we're like, you know, mice and whatever that experiment was that they conducted, and everybody just watched them. So it's like that's concerning. It's not necessarily like what you guys are using it for. It's just the potential for what it can always extend
Yeah, and
out
to both ladies' points, just so you hear me say it, it could be.
Yeah.
You know, listen, I love my profession.
I think it's an honorable and notable profession from the time that David walked the wall as a king. I think that's what we do, is separate the wicked from the just and try and pursue those who pursue others. But there's bad people in my profession. There's bad people that don't intend to be bad people. You know what I mean? So some of the things that we do for good intentions, but they're not always good things. And that's partly what our Supreme Court is supposed to oversee, right? Miranda became a thing because Arizona versus Miranda was a deal where we thought we were doing a good job, and the Supreme Court goes, no, you did it wrong according to the Constitution. And we saw it, and we dictated down a case law that now establishes a procedure to make sure you don't violate that again. So agreeably, you know, like, and cautiously, I don't want you guys to think I'm just blindly rolling into this and defending it to all it's worth, and I get it, and I agree with everything. I'm just telling you that from the aspect of pursuit, it's a heck of a tool for us. It has a heck of a success rate. Fundamentally, it can be very beneficial for, I work for you guys, and my job is, tickets and all that stuff aside, God forbid I'm leading this agency one day and I gotta come back to this argument, but my primary goal as a police officer is not to protect your homes. If you guys haven't heard anybody in law enforcement tell you that before, understand this, that if there's an intruder in your home, the likely chances of me getting there to save you are slim to none. Know how to protect and defend yourself, and if you don't, marry somebody who does. Female or male, I don't care. My job is to make sure that the peace is kept as best I can, and to ensure that when crime is committed, we investigate and find out who did it, present them to a court for justice. And this tool was just a really good tool to help us do that. If, in fact, it becomes or is something that is more of a harbinger against our public and the privacy of the public, and that as a citizenry, you guys rise up and the Supreme Court sees it that way and it's taken down, then it's taken down. I think you'll see this rural town be one of the first ones to do it. As far as like the shared assets that he was kind of making a big deal out of, yeah, we share with agencies across. Every time I get a share request, I look at the agency, do the background check, make sure, and then I share it. Why? Because I had a bank robber that went all the way up to Perry, Georgia, and we caught him up there. If I'd have had this, we would have caught him quicker. Now, does that success story mean you guys should give up your freedoms? No, that's not why I'm telling you that. I'm telling you that because we use sharing information because it opens up the boundary in my jurisdiction. The firearms that were stolen, we found because the flock system in Ocala and Orlando linked those cases together, and we found them. So I don't disagree with you, and I think, yeah, look, biofacial recognition stuff, most of the software I have, I'll be honest with you, with the biofacial stuff, we don't use it a lot. I don't find a lot of success in it. You have to go back and validate it. I haven't had a lot of good success with it, so we don't use it a lot anyway, but yeah, that stuff's scary, man. I get it, and I understand it, and I think you, especially, you know, some of the histories of the places we've been. I have a lot of friends at church who are one of my closest friends who, they're from Cuba, and his dad is like, man, he just hates he just recently passed, but he hates the government. For good reason, man. His government hunted him, and ours could too. I mean, we've seen that in the last few years, and I understand why we fear things like this.
Look what the federal government did with the J6 defendants in Florida.
Yeah, agreed. Yes, sir.
I mean, obviously, you take an oath to the Constitution, right?
Yes, sir.
Protect our Constitution.
Right.
So, why is it that something's implemented, that you implement something before you find out whether the Supreme Court approves it as a discretionary?
No, it's not the Supreme Court. It's not the Supreme Court approving or disapproving. At currently, this is an approved. It's overwhelmingly approved by case law as
Right,
defended
but
in appellate court.
I mean,
So it's not like we're looking at it going, this is probably. We looked at it going, this is, you know, absolutely legal and ethical under the Constitution, based upon court cases.
that's how you guys view it.
Yeah, well, that's what the case law currently says. The case law currently says this is constitutional.
There's case.
What I'm saying is that if that changes and the Supreme Court or a appellate court injunction overturns that, and of course it won't be. But we were never looking at this system like it was a nefarious system. We're looking at it like it's a well-approved in-public system that we
So
can
there
use
was
to
no
catch bad guys.
constitutional rights considered at all during this?
Sir?
Was there any constitutional rights considered in your decision? At all?
Yeah, well, everything that we do, we consider constitutional rights, right? So every use of force I apply, every tool I use, every weapon I use, the Constitution is considered in that. If it's not constitutional, we don't use it. Does that
But
make
you
sense?
guys didn't have a specific conversation before buying this system about well is, I guess based on the fact that other places already used it,
Yeah,
already had
yeah.
a court record saying that it's okay.
Right, you're right, yeah,
You sort of did
currently,
consider
the system, LPRs have been in use for about 50 years. There has been constitutional challenges to the LPR system, like many of the things that we do. Taser had its own constitutional challenges, Axon body
And they're
camera.
settled to be constitutional?
Sir?
And they're settled to be constitutional?
Currently, yeah, if it wasn't, like open carry in the state of Florida was currently sent to an appellate court where they overturned it, stating it unconstitutional. There's no challenge by the Attorney General and or the Governor, so it's been upheld since
So
September
if there's a
25th.
discretion, if there's a discretion as far as constitutional rights, the way you view it and the way the government views it, are you going to protect our constitutional rights that way?
Are you asking me if I think the government's currently doing something unconstitutional as
No,
a?
I'm saying, are you going to wait for the government's decision when you view it as unconstitutional yourself, being on?
No, well, I'll give you an example of that. And we currently have PROs and TPROs. These are essentially laws that we can do prevent crime in situations where we feel somebody has displayed situations where they could be a threat or a danger to the public. Our county served about 28 of these. The police department hasn't served any. These are where you appeal, there's a red flag law where you appeal to a judge to obtain an order by a court to go in and take their firearms for the possibility that this person could become a danger. Thus far, I've encouraged my boss that I don't feel like, as an agency, this is something we should pursue, and I think it's going to be challenged in court further. It feels unconstitutional. So in
Discretion on constitution.
it's not necessarily discretion as much as is that constitutional right now? Yes. Is it something that we've been pursuing? Not necessarily. So no, I don't want you to think that it's my opinion as a police officer in here doing what's good or what's bad. But there is a place where you say, and Moses and I have talked about this quite a bit. If the government comes in and tells me to go take your guns, what am I going to do?
Right.
I'm not going to take your guns.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. No, yeah.
You would?
This.
You would?
No.
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 That's where a strong sheriff comes in for that.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. But for me, there's no, in answer to your question, there's no obvious breach of Constitution. Now, I know there's some people in here that feel like that may be the case, that this is a breach of Constitutional Amendment number 4. I don't see that in this. It's a publicly placed, you guys, for me, when you ask me, this is a camera in a public place that sees you like every other camera in a public place or every other person that's in a public place. And I'm just using that device like I would a private citizen's device to use that information to find the bad actor.
Right, but I mean, in this case, this instance like this, like we're talking about, what separates you from Walmart or Lowe's is that you took the constitutional oath, or you took an oath to the Constitution to protect our constitutional rights.
Right, yes,
So
sir.
that's the separation here.
Yeah, but the issue at hand is the constitutional right.
Right.
You're in a public domain, so there's no expectation of privacy. Constitutionally, I won't go into your home and search your house without a warrant, right? But that doesn't mean if I walk by your car and look in your window as I'm walking into Walmart and see a kilo of cocaine, I'm not gonna go get that cocaine and get you out of the car. That was constitutionally in plain view. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but I understand there's also a difference in what we're talking about here in that, as you view it, you're thinking there may be an anti-constitutional movement here.
Well, it's in question.
It's in question,
So
yes.
obviously, there's a question with us as citizens.
Well, everything like I said, taser, Axon camera, this is all in the courts too.
My question is the first one I've seen. Prior to me ever knowing anything about, it being in court.
Yeah.
So I seen it and I said, this is, BS.
Yeah.
Everything goes to the court.
Yeah.
Everything you try to do.
I mean, like one of the things we deal with as law enforcement on a regular basis, and people don't think it's here. I've had it happen about 6 times to me where somebody comes up while I'm working the case and they do this. And they're like, it's my constitutional right to film you the whole time and I gotta deal with it. And you know what? They're right. I gotta deal with that. Usually I make them mad because I'm just sweet as peas to them. So. But, it's constitutionally protected act that they could film me in a public place. Plus I'm a government official, so they could anyway, but they could film Moses in a public place.
But now it's 25 feet, ain't it?
There is some movement of change. So the issue became, are you interfering with the law enforcement officer's act that he's performing? And that's a touchy subject. There is a distance change that's been enacted, And I'm glad for that, but I don't want to, again, I want you protected. I want your rights to film me protected. That guy that started that was, I don't know if you guys know this, but photography is not a crime, guys. The Don't Tase Me Bro guy from the University of Florida. Some of what they were doing was good because one of the things we've implemented more at the police department is more class on civil rights teaching. And it's not to say that we don't know what we're doing, but we can never get enough of that. And I think, especially in today's world, what scares me the most is I'm going to have one of those guys that comes up and gets filmed and throws an attitude and ends up handcuffing the guy improperly. I'm scared to death of that. So we need to know that. So civil rights and constitutional law are very important to me. There is a difference in how we view it, as individuals. And I'm trying to answer your question with accuracy, and I don't want it to sound like I'm dancing in any way. If I saw that this was a constitutional issue at hand that was obvious to me, would I encourage pursuit of it? No. That's like the red letter law. To me, that seems more obvious. This doesn't, and yes, it is in the courts, but like to the point that was made, everything we deal with kind of is. So
Well, what I'm trying to get at is you as my last line of defense.
Yes, sir.
The government is going the wrong way.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do is when you stand up, you guys are supposed to stand up for my constitutional rights.
Yeah.
So, and you pretty well answered that.
Yeah, well, and I think it would be different for me if the camera was, to her point, the purpose of it was to always track you. It's actually tracking the information we enter, right? It is physically taking a picture, so it is in that sense. And that was one of the arguments to the cell phone data. You guys remember that argument back in the 2007, the government NSA saving all of our cell phone data?
Yeah.
And that was a big, huge case, and they were saying, well, the only thing I was saying is if they want to listen to my phone calls, they're just going to fall asleep. But it was non-constitutional because that was your private data and your private conversations, and that could be an argument applied here. It's certainly something to think about. But I know, that the device's capabilities and requirements are set up to perform the function of looking for the specific alert information that's input into it for the criminal investigation that's backed up by state statute, and it's supposed to be an audit situation. That policy is supposed to be put in place to do that we've done. Could it go worse and be nefarious? Yes. Everything we do could, right? So could the system be manipulated and hacked into and be corrupted? Yes, I would imagine it probably can. I've got a lot of boring stuff on paper that it's all the requirements from the CGIS for the different FERPAs and ISOs and all that protection. The destruction is a critical process, blah, blah, blah. Could that be corrupted? Yeah, probably. I'm not a computer guy, so I'm not smart enough to even debate that stuff with you, or don't intend to. But yeah, that's all possible. All of that stuff always is.
Virginia.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you reassured us earlier how our local department is doing an audit on officers searching for licenses.
Yes, ma'am.
But we've got all these law enforcement agencies sharing data, and it's no problem for somebody here to call somebody in McDonough, Georgia, and say, run this tag for me.
You mean like if to usurp the system, they could call there to have them?
Yeah, because you're auditing here.
Yeah.
And that was a huge list of sharing
Yeah.
agencies.
Call somebody else to check on your girlfriend.
Yeah, right, that's what
Yeah.
I do.
No, and then I'm requiring, or I'm trusting that agency is also performing the audit. Yeah, that also goes in line with all of this.
You wanna pass that around or read it or what?
Is that possible? Yes, ma'am. That was one of the points I made, that a bad actor can circumvent the system and do bad stuff. Hopefully we have enough people in place that are good actors to catch them. That's what my job is. I hope and I do believe that the majority of agencies are filled with a larger percentage of people that are looking for bad people than they have in them. Men are evil. You're right. It does exist. It could happen. Yeah, that system could be circumvented. That could happen with any of the systems that I told you about earlier. It could be a way to circumvent it. So you're not inaccurate in that. We stay way too late.
Yeah.
I enjoy this.
Oh, wait.
We got 7.5 more minutes from Moses in the back.
Some of y'all don't recognize most of it, yeah, I do, but if this guy happens to run for sheriff again next time, we wouldn't be in the situation. I don't know if y'all know what situation we're in the county right now, because, I've got a whole lot of reasons that this guy didn't become our last sheriff, but we wouldn't be there, at least not an exact same. He's got a clean bill of health as a law enforcement officer, you know? So, that should be our next sheriff, people.
Moses told me to be careful with this.
I
Because of
advised him
probably,
not to come.
but probably because of what, you know, man.
They give you a cheat sheet.
No, I mean, like, number one, I want to be real with you. You know, if I want to, I'm telling you, admittedly, how I feel about the situation. And I'm glad at least we could dialogue, because in other videos that we've seen in colleges across the campus, most of the time people get mad, you're just ripping my sign down, spitting on me, and pouring tea and running away. And at least we can have the dialogue. You know what I mean? So that's good. And admittedly, like I told you with him, if I'm wrong, then I want to know I'm wrong. You know what I mean? My zeal to catch bad guys is high. You know, I love pursuing those who prey on the vulnerable and the weak, and putting them where they need to go. It's weird because I never saw myself in law enforcement. My story of getting into it is interesting. I'd love to share it with you sometime, but I am zealous to do that, and that goal can be blind. So the conversation with you, that if this is a bad thing and needs to be dealt with in a different way, then maybe that's a conversation we need to have. I'm just, you know, trying to be honest and open and answer the question properly. It wasn't the goal, and we have seen success with it, and we do like it, and it's exciting that it's helping us do what I just described. And that, you know,
Jason, I think, like I started out way back, but, you know, those folks that sit in those chairs up there, to me, they didn't do their due diligence.
They didn't. They weren't even involved. I don't know if y'all misunderstood.
Involved in the money.
I was
No.
gonna say, was it budgeted specifically for this, or it was just part of?
No, they didn't know anything about it.
No, it was just a purchase. So we have procurement policies in place. Certain things over a certain amount of money goes through a procurement policy. But this wasn't necessarily.
$50,000.
What's the limit?
It's near what it
Yeah.
would have to.
Now I'm saying that. I may be saying more than I know. I don't believe the procurement involved the city council for this, but I could be wrong.
Do you know what the limits are?
Sorry?
Do you know what the limits are before they need to get involved? Offhand?
I
don't blame
man,
you. I was just
but
curious.
It's not my world. I can try and. I'll tell you
Fair
this.
enough.
I'll give you my cell phone. You can call me. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I was
check
actually
it,
going to
but
ask for your
I'm
contact info.
I'm fixing to leave on mission Sunday, so I've got all kinds of
Jason,
stuff
the reason I
cramming.
say
but-
that is, you know, you're talking 50,000 for 2 years. They
Yeah.
set up here for 10 minutes. A meeting I was at a couple, 3 months ago, wanting to spend 30-something thousand on a dump truck. You know, the dump truck to me was like, it's nice to let it know, but you know, y'all know about dump truck. I don't. I don't know why it's needed, but you know, but to me, you know, it's those people that are elected, because what the camera business would be like, for instance, the maintenance department, he didn't want a dump truck, he wanted a Lamborghini.
Mhm.
Well, I have the approval to buy a whatever. To me, you know, yeah, something within your scope, a normal thing, something that you've gotten before, but no, Lamborghini don't count. That requires everybody having a, you know, and the same thing with the camera thing. It's much more personal than just the camera sitting on a stoop. And I think that's, you know, what she talked about, how I interpreted what she said. It's the same thing for me. It's like living in Orlando is like you get microscope. You feel like you're a rat in a cage. You're just being watched every corner you go to. I mean, they've got so many cameras. I don't know how many thousands they've got, but virtually every intersection's now got a camera. And you know, some of it they say it's for this, that, or the other, traffic control, and I wouldn't doubt if a little bit of it is, but.
There's one on every mile of the interstate. Camera, 360 degree. Yeah, I mean, it's.
If you're a bad guy, the interstate's not the best route.
Well, for me, it's a good thing. I mean, yes, ma'am.
We're in the next pandemic, and the state says you can't go to church. These cameras are filming you going to church. Where does that put you?
It doesn't. Well, that would put me where the question that he asked me earlier. If I'm told, so I believe in the law of higher magistrate. That principle that if you're giving an invalid order or an unlawful order, your obligation is not to follow it. It's to actually pursue the antithesis of it. The camera system, to your question, is not set up that way. It's not a video system, it's a picture system, high resolution IR system that takes an image. Specifically, it takes every image of motion activated by a vehicle. It can be, I think, has been argued that people can activate it too, but it's supposed to be looking for those individual pictures, taking a picture of it. And then the alert is based upon the information that I input into it. So it's not, we don't sit and watch the camera and we're watching every car go by. The camera system is taking a picture, but when I put alert information into it, for instance, if I put a bolo on a tag that is like the homicide frequency, when I put his tag in, that's what it specifically is sending me. It's got a match for that tag. Like if I put into our 8 cameras, that tag 129 says, hey, I just took a picture of this car that you gave me. It's passing up here right now, and I go that direction. Could it theoretically be changed to be a video system and watch everybody going to church and send the government to keep people from going to church? Yeah. I mean, he could probably answer that better than I can. I think he would tell you yes.
My fear is that it wouldn't be obvious. It could happen right now or tomorrow, and you wouldn't tell the difference, because it's not just, to be honest, I want to trust you as a person, as a cop. I want to trust your department relatively, but again, the way they did this totally blows that out of the water. Even if I could trust you and the local government, it's access to the state government, it's access to the federal government, and more importantly, it's access to the company, the private company. If bad stuff happens, that CEO is not going to jail, I promise you.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I get your argument for that. I understand.
That's the messed up part.
Yeah, I understand.
I have to trust everybody.
Yeah, and I couldn't even, and I wouldn't debate that. I don't disagree with you. I think that's something that you have to be concerned with. All of our stuff is vendor licensed, right? So Axon's a private company, Taser's a private. That's money-making industry in law enforcement, I guess. I don't know. None of our stuff is government produced or made, so it is all private company access, and I get your argument to it. Axon's one of those things, right? I do. That's another system I audit is our Axon cameras. I do the FOIA requests on those.
That's your body-worn camera?
Yes, that's the body-worn camera that we would wear.
Where do those images go?
So that's a web-based digital imagery that Axon or Evidence.com stores off-site in a digital. Explain that the cloud-based storage that they hold for us. So yeah, private company off-site. I have coded access. It's supposed to be encrypted and everything else. But again, to the point, could that be corrupted? Yeah, probably could. I mean, Lake City got held ransom when they got hacked 5 or 6 years ago. Paid several $100,000 to get unhacked, and so yeah, there's bad guys out there doing that stuff all the time. So all that stuff is susceptible, and then it comes back to, do we use any of that stuff, and do we just police with the handicap that we don't have that stuff? And I don't know. I mean, honestly, that's, if you guys as a citizenry said, you know what, we'd rather fall prey to this and not have, like going back to the argument, relinquishing liberty for security, and you have neither, right? And if we feel that way as a citizenry or a population, then that's the decision you make through a city council or pressure to enforcement. If you, well, the old I tell you this, and Moses will be one to tell you quickly. We need more participation in our city hall meetings and our county commissioner meetings. What's that? It did.
Yeah.
No, it didn't.
That's
but he knows, and that's what Aiden was asking me, is how I feel negative about this. I want to say something negative to this and approach. Who do I approach? And I would say you approach the city manager, and then your city councilman. If you're in the city, then you're represented by. But even if you don't live in the city, if you drive in the city, then you would, any city councilman you would approach with your concerns or comments. You can do that. Moses can tell you he's pretty frequently here. You can do that through public comment. No, ma'am. But any legislative condition that you want attention to or changed, you would approach through that process. You can contact our office, the chief of police. You can make you can hold negative concerns with him. You can call my office anytime you want. That's why I'm here, right? So Miss Lisa said, "Hey, would you come and speak?" And despite my friend's warning, I did.
It sounds like the only thing we can do is tell our city council people to disallow a lot of large blanket of things, essentially, or to put in some sort of fuse or whatever as far as what you guys buy, or maybe have some sort of ethics overreach going on. Because it seemed, again, I think you kind of confirmed it. One person signed that sheet, None of our elected officials knew about it. So we need to have some greater oversight, ethically
speaking.
speaking.
To be fair, I would address that with City Hall to make sure. I wasn't a part of that process, so I don't want to be.
All right.
I don't want to improperly answer that question. I just kind of, my first impression was that, but just to be certain of that in the procurement process.
Well, you don't have to leave, you can continue the discussion, but if you want to leave, feel free to leave. But it's been a great discussion,
Yeah.
thank you both.
Yeah, sure.
And everybody who came and contributed to the discussion, it was really excellent. And feel free to continue. But,
Can we disagree with that?
I don't mind. I'll stay. I can even walk outside if we need to.